Hello, my name is Michael Wireman, and I'm going to share with you more mind-blowing teachings and doctrines from the Bible which you may have missed or overlooked. Now, if you ask any God-denying atheist on the streets who's moral, if theft, murder, lying, and rape are wrong, they will immediately tell you it's wrong. Of course, these are only four of the things that are mentioned in the Ten Commandments. But did you know the Ten Commandments, which are found in both the book of Exodus and the book of Deuteronomy, Exodus chapter 20 and Deuteronomy chapter 5, are only 10 of 613 commandments, which we documented in both Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Like 613 laws. Now, here's the mind-blowing part. Out of the 613 laws found in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, in the first 5 books of the New Testament, both Jesus and the Gospels and the disciples overturn and nullify 300 of the 613 laws found in books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. 300 laws. I'm going to give you an example of some of the laws that Jesus overturned and nullified in the Gospels, Moses, in the book of Deuteronomy. Of course, you probably heard of the Hammurabi Code, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, which means someone knocks out your tooth, or someone blinds you in one eye, you should gouge out their eye. Well, of course, that is also mentioned in the Torah, in the books of Exodus and Leviticus. For example, Exodus 21:24, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. It is also in Leviticus 24:20, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, the same injury one gives another shall be inflicted in return. However, in the Gospels, Jesus and the Gospels alters and overturns and nullifies the fracture. Overturns and nullifies Exodus 21:24 and Leviticus 24:20. This is found in Matthew chapter 5, 38 through 40. You've heard it said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I say unto you, do not resist one who is evil. But if someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn and offer him the left. If someone sues you and takes away your coat, hand him over your shirt as well. And then we have Luke chapter 6, 29 through 30. To the one who strikes you on the one cheek, turn and offer him the other. To the person who takes away your coat, do not withhold your shirt. Give to anyone who asks of you, and whoever takes from you, do not demand in return. And then he goes even further than that when it comes to people who mistreat you. Jesus says in Matthew 5, 43 through 44, you have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute you. It also repeats this in Luke chapter 6, 27 through 28. But to you who hear, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. So basically, in Matthew's Gospel, Matthew 5, 38 through 40, which is also Matthew 5, 43 through 44, and in Luke chapter 6, 27 through 30, Jesus overturns and nullifies the hand of the code in Exodus 21:24 and Leviticus 24:20. And of course, if you read down the list down Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy 14 has a list of animals which Jews do not eat. Of course, Jews don't eat pork, they don't eat shellfish. This is because of the dietary recommendations found in both Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy 14. However, in Matthew 15 and in Mark chapter 7, Jesus gets into this discussion with the Pharisees. And he says that nothing that enters the mouth defiles a person. What comes out of the mouth, that does. And he says that everything that enters does not go into the heart, but it goes into the stomach and out the retriever. He says, purging all meats. And then, of course, in the book of Acts, we have Peter's vision, where he gets real hungry, which is both mentioned in both Acts chapter 10 and Acts chapter 11, where this big sheet comes down and all these unclean animals are in that sheet. And of course, a voice from heaven says, "Arise, Peter, kill and eat." And since Peter was a pious Jew who observed the dietary laws of Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14, he states, "I will not, for I have not eaten anything that is profane or unclean." And then the voice says, "What God has made clean, you are not to call profane." So, because of what Jesus stated in Matthew 15 and in Mark chapter 6, and Peter's vision in Acts chapter 10 and in Acts 11, basically nullifies like Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14. So you can put a giant X through like Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14. And now, everyone knows about the Sabbath law. One of the 10 Commandments is keep the Sabbath day holy. But did you know that people who breaking this law is punishable by death? No, it's punishable by death. Let's see in Exodus 31:15. 6 days are for work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath day, shall be a day of complete rest, holy to the Lord. Anyone who does work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. Exodus 31:15. Now let's go to Exodus 35:2. On 6 days work may be done, but the seventh day shall be a holy to you, a Sabbath of complete rest to the Lord. Anyone who does work on the Sabbath will be put to death. So, there you have it. And of course, we also have an incident in Numbers 15:32 through 36. While the Israelites were in the wilderness, they saw a man was discovered gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. Those who caught him laid hands and brought him before Moses and Aaron and the whole council. They put him in custody because it was not determined what should be done about him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "This man shall be put to death, and the whole community shall stone him outside the camp." So the whole community led him outside the camp, and they stoned him to death, just as the Lord commanded Moses. So, Exodus 31:15, Exodus 35:2 states that working on the Sabbath is punishable by death. And Numbers 15:32 through 36 actually documents an incident where a man was caught gathering firewood on the Sabbath, and he was put to death for working. Now, let's see what Jesus says in the Gospels. We're going with Matthew chapter 12, 1 through 8. At the time Jesus was going through some grain fields on the Sabbath, his disciples were hungry, and they began plucking the heads of grain and eating them. When some Pharisees saw what he was doing, they said to him, "Look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful to do on the Sabbath." He said to them, "Have you not read what David did when he and his companions were hungry? How he entered into the house of God and ate the sacred bread, which was only the priests can eat? Or have you not read in the law how the priests can go about working on the Sabbath day and be innocent? But I say unto you, here is something greater than the temple. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." This is also repeated in Mark chapter 2, 23 through 28. As he was passing through some fields of grain on the Sabbath, his disciples began plucking the heads of grain. Some Pharisees said to them, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful to do on the Sabbath?" He said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were in need? How he entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest, and how he ate the sacred bread of offering that only the priest could lawfully eat, and shared it with his companions? They said to them that the Sabbath was made for man, not man made for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord over the Sabbath. It is also repeated in Luke chapter 6, 1 through 5. While he was going through some fields of grain on the Sabbath, his disciples were picking the heads and eating them. Some Pharisees said to them, "Why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" Jesus said to them in reply, "Have you not read what David did when he and those with him were hungry? How he entered into the house of God and took the bread of offering, which only the priest could lawfully eat, and ate it, and shared it with his companions?" And they said to them that the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Now, when the Pharisees pointed out that Jesus' disciples were violating the Sabbath, breaking a law that is punishable, doing a crime that is punishable by death, did he say to his 12 disciples, "All right, all of you line up single file so we can stone you to death"? No! He stated that the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. What happened in Exodus 31:15, Exodus 35:2, I declare null and void. What happened in Numbers chapter 15, 32 through 36 will never happen again. You can work on the Sabbath all you want and not be punished by death. And just remember, God's law is still the other remaining 313 laws are still God's law, and we still need to obey them. I hope you follow whatever is written down in the gospel. You live by it too. God bless you and have a wonderful day.